welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Kay, aka K Day, aka Khalif. Let me do a little pose for the thumbnail, okay? Okay. Let me do that for the thumbnail of the video. Anywho, welcome back. A few months ago, I did a video about self-love and self-esteem as a trans woman, as a trans person, right? A woman of trans experience, a woman who just so happens to be trans, right? And in that video, I'm gonna be honest, I don't fully recall what was said, but it's there. Go check it out. But I wanted to make a part two of it because I wanted to dig a little bit deeper. And I wrote a few things down. And I may have said that in part one, but part two, I wanted to dig deeper because I felt like part one was kind of surface level. But before we get into this, I just want to say that I'm not one of those trans women who's seeking to be the savior of the trans community or anything like that. Like I'm not trying to position myself as a trans woman who knows everything about it. All I can tell you is my experience. We're all different. So as you're listening to this, it's just strictly my perspective on things and what has helped me, right? I can't say that this has helped every other trans woman. All of us are different. We all have our own journeys, and I'm definitely going to talk about some things. But yeah, my goal is to not position myself, even with the content that I put out on my podcast. I'm not trying to be the savior of the trans girls. We already have that. We already have girls who have done that before. That's not my goal. Okay. So, but I definitely want to lend my voice to the conversation. Okay. So with all that being said, number one, when it comes to self-love and self-esteem as a trans woman in particular, even a trans person, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. And me, I'm in my late 20s now, and my transition is super private to me. And, so even as I share this, I'm going to probably not give you like deeper parts of me just in protection of myself. But what I will say is that number one, when it comes to your self-love as a trans person, first of all, it takes a while to achieve self-love. Self-love is something, and self-esteem is something that you have to build, right? Rihanna has a saying where she says, it's like some clip from her show where someone's interviewing her or something like that, right? And I know that a lot of young people, a lot of millennials and stuff, we look to celebrities for inspiration, right? But it's we can also look at literature. We can look at all types of forms of media, forms of inspiration, right? Rihanna has this quote where she was just like, this reporter asked her, what advice can you give someone who just isn't feeling feeling good, or they're not feeling like themselves, or feeling like giving, or they don't feel confident, or they don't feel like they love themselves, self-esteem. And she was just like, fake it till you make it. Even if you don't feel it, you got to get up, you got to fake it till you make it, honey. And I know that that's such an old saying, but it's true, right? So even if you are younger in your transition and you don't even have all the answers, and this is new to you, if you don't have a supportive family, because I know that the young people who have a supportive family, they already sort of have a foundation of support in that regard. Even if their family doesn't fully understand, they already kind of have those inklings of a foundation to kind of get those tools of love, right? So when it comes to loving self, if you're with someone who grew up like me, or similar to me, right, where you didn't have that support, like me, not to get too personal, but I didn't have support in regards to my gender, right? I grew up and the world told me that I was just this black boy and that I was wrong for who I was. And on the inside, I genuinely felt like something was not aligned, right? So that's the typical story that you hear for trans people, right? And I know we live in an age now where a lot of us are tired of saying that. Even me, I'm tired of saying that. Like, I'm just like, whatever, girl. Okay, we get it. But that's how I grew up. So I grew up in a very conservative home, in a home that had that Christian backdrop to it, that conservative backdrop, and a hood backdrop. I grew up in a very hood family, a very hood and country conservative family. You know what I mean? Black people who were just out here hustling, black people who dealt with substances and so forth. That's how I grew up, right? So with my family in particular, in 2022 now, we live in an age where all of it is out now. All of it is out. All of it is out. But I was talking to a trans woman who I know, an older trans woman who I appreciate so much. And she's older than me, and we were just talking about our experiences. And I was just telling her, I was like, 5 years ago it wasn't like this. It was kind of like this, but not really. 10 years ago it wasn't like this. And when I say like this, we live in an age now where everyone is who they are. And you see so many people leading with their identity. Their identity is what they cling to. Their identity is just everything, which is fine. I feel like that's necessary in certain spaces, but I often feel that what we always forget about is the internal work, right? The internal parts of being trans. That is so hard, especially if you grew up not accepting who you are and you have to walk on that difficult path. So, number one, what I want to say is that it takes time. It takes time to develop that, right? And it takes daily work. Give it time. Give it time in your transition. Um, don't feel pressured to do it publicly. Everybody wants to document everything and receive. And that works for some people in their transition. I'm not going to take away from that. There are so many people who I watched on YouTube when I was a teenager, growing up, 12 years ago, and so forth, where I needed that. I needed to see it. I needed to see it, right? But then there are other trans people who don't want to do that. And it's a very private transition. It's a very private journey. And for you, I want to let you know that if you're that way, it's okay to be that way. You don't have to be an advocate. You don't have to get clout for your transition. You don't have to document it if you do not want to, right? Because it's a very private thing. I feel like transitioning, at least from my experience, it's a private thing that people see publicly, right? So when you're doing it, people see you growing your hair out, starting hormones, your skin gets softer. They see the social markers of gender, right? And they see someone who they perceived as a certain way morphing into their newer self, right? You're still the same person when you transition. You're still the same person. You're just living. You are giving energy and air and life to who you are. And that is coming out into fruition, right? That's how I view transition. We could talk about the hormones, we could talk about the doctors, we could talk about the surgeries. That's already out there. I don't care about that. What I'm telling you is to give it time in your transition and do the self work. With self work, examine yourself, examine why you want to transition. Ask yourself, who do you want to be in 10 years? Who do you want to be in 20 years? For me, that's what I did. I literally was so depressed in my teens, because I was like, God, I know my truth, and I know that I am meant to be a woman. I know that, and I feel it. It's something that is there. I'm not crazy. I don't have a mental disorder. A lot of people think that sorry for the trigger warning for the word crazy. I know, yeah, but I'm not illogical for feeling how I feel, right? So this is why we see so many trans people fight so much, and a lot of us are constantly fighting and getting up every day, dealing with this world that we live in, that this patriarchal, white supremacist, misogynistic, transphobic, homophobic, all these phobics and all these things, ableist, and so all these different terms, right? We're living in this world every day trying to make it work for the happiness of self. With transition, there's a dark side of it. There are times where you get depressed. There are times where you might be considering doing something to yourself. This is why it's important to examine self, and if you have the ability to have the resources of therapy, take advantage of it. Find out if you can get it for free from a program somewhere. If you live in a rural or country area, try your best to think about moving to a city. It's going to be hard. It will be very hard. There is no blueprint for your transition, but there's information out there, right? So give it time, come up with an efficient plan, give it time, and do some internal work. When I say internal work, probably figure out a therapist who can help you if you have the resources. I know all of us don't have the resources. Sometimes it's hard to get a therapist, so I'm sensitive to that. If you can't do it, write, 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 Write it out. Get a diary, get a journal, write out your feelings and sort through it. Watch YouTube. Figure out other things from other girls. Get that encouragement, get that advice. If you're all alone, you can do this by yourself as well. You can. You just have to prepare to fight for it, and you have to figure out the strength to transition, right? You got to figure out that strength to dress how you want to dress, that strength to start your hormones, that strength to change your name, right? Find areas of safety, right? Figure out a friend group who, figure out people or people to the best of your ability where you can be safe. I understand how the world works. All of us are not dealt the same card. Some of us had to fight. For me, I had to leave my hometown to be who I am. I could not be who I was in my hometown. I'm from Fresno, California. A person like me, there are trans people there, but when, where I grew up, you'll get got. You'll get hurt. You know what I mean? So for me, it was a matter of my safety, which is why, and I'm not going to get too deep about my story, but what I will say is that I had to leave. And there are times where, sometimes life hits you in a certain way, and you got to do it for you. So I'm not encouraging you, if you're a young person, I'm not saying run away or nothing like that, but what I'm saying is that, however old you are, and once you know who you are, and if you are dealing with friction from family, friends, school, so forth, you have to plan and figure out a way to do this where you will have the most comfort and the most support. Because, it takes a lot of mental energy to develop self-love and self-esteem as a trans woman, right? And I think I went on a tangent about transition, so let me get back to the point of this video. When it comes to self-love and self-esteem, it takes a lot of internal work. It takes some therapy. It takes writing. It takes you asking yourself questions about your identity and also appreciating the parts of you that society and people tell you are wrong. You have to dig and do positive self-talk. Positive self-talk is a concept of you. Whenever you have a negative thought, you are fighting those negative thoughts with positive ones. For example, me, I could say, oh my God, I don't like my hair, or oh my God, I hate my nose, or oh my God, I sound like a man, right? I fight that and say, you don't sound like a man. You sound like a sexy ass woman with a raspy voice. You have a cute nose. Look in the mirror. You like yourself. Even if I'm struggling with that, right? Look in the mirror. I have a mirror right in front of me right now. Look in the mirror. You love you and you like yourself and you love who you are. That's a part of self-love and self-work, and you have to figure out how to do it when you hate yourself. There are some people who don't even like looking in the mirror because they hate who they are. And I was there. Like, I used to be someone where I hated who I was. I hated it because it came with so many challenges. It came with so many, and I would get caught up in thinking about the future, like, oh my God, is the rest of my life gonna be hard? I'm already Black, for God's sakes. So you slap being trans on top of it, trying to get your education, trying to do the right thing, trying to do the right thing, right? And when I say the right thing, I mean, following this whole societal thing of go to college, get an education, do this, be respectable, be all the things, right? And still dealing with internal stuff. And I'm not trying to cuss on here, honey, I can get a little saucy with my mouth. But what I'm saying is that it takes years of that. And you will constantly find yourself in a place where no matter what surgeries you get, no matter how pretty you are, it's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. And that's why I always encourage trans people to be more authentic with who you are. Not saying that we're not, but be more authentic with self and be honest with self. Question why you transitioned or why you want to. These are the parts of self-love. Loving who you are. Accepting the fact that you were born into this world with a different experience. Accept it. That's self-love to me. Self-esteem. Working on your confidence. This could be reflected in different ways. You could probably start dressing a little cuter, if you have the resources to do that. Figuring out your style, figuring out your form of makeup. I hate the way these glasses look with this bang. But figuring out what works for you, and getting the confidence to rock what you want to rock, like me, rocking whatever hair you want to rock, knowing that, I know black women, women of color, we struggle too when it comes to these beauty standards, right? When it comes to these beauty standards, me being a chocolate woman, when it comes to these beauty standards that people put on us, on all women, um, telling us that our skin makes us a certain way or we're not beautiful because of our skin, we have to embrace that. That's the only way, So when it comes to self love and self esteem, we have to figure out what we can do to clean out the muck and the guck of the trauma. That's what we have to do. You can read certain books. I just finished a book by Louise Hay. It's called Love Yourself, Heal Yourself. I believe that's what it's called. Oh, no, 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 no. I'm sorry. It's by Louise Hay. It's called You Can Heal Your Life. And then she has a workbook called Love Yourself, You Can Heal Yourself, which is like the exercise book to that book. I finished that book. It took me and I took my time reading it. It's a very easy read, but I took my time reading it. It took me about 4 or 5 months to read that book, but I just took my time. I did not rush it. I literally read it when I felt like it or when I felt like the energy to do it, and I went for it and I did it. After that, I began doing some exercises, and I'm still working on those exercises, and I'm allowing myself the time. One thing that I learned from that book was, she has a saying, it's a mantra where she says, I approve of myself. And I started having that energy towards myself of like, you know what, I approve of myself at this time in my life. So when it comes to self-love and self-esteem, just know that that's something that truly takes time. It takes time. Give me 1 second, you all. Sorry, I'm hanging out with a friend after this, and I wanted to finish this video. So give it time. That's number one. I know I went on a tangent, but I hope you're following and digesting this. Number two, learn about the type of woman you see yourself as, who you want to be in the future, okay? So this is more so for the younger girls, but this can also be for the girls who are my age, late 20s or even older. Um, who do you want to be? Who do you see yourself as, right? Being a woman of trans experience comes with a lot because we transitioned, so we're fighting against a system and a world that is constantly telling us day in and day out that you are a man. That's what they say to women like us. We're going to do everything in our power to invalidate you. When it comes to legislation and in jurisdictions, right? We're stripping you of your rights as a trans person. We're stripping those rights. We're attacking cisgender women. I mean, look at what happened with Roe versus Wade, right? We're in a very chaotic time where our human rights and our basic rights are being stripped right before our eyes. So it takes a lot to get up every day. Rather you're a trans woman who's new to it, rather you're a trans woman who's a sex worker and you're out here making your money, rather you're a trans woman who is not a sex worker and you're trying to work a 9 to 5 and you're trying to get out of that life or not even have that life if you've never had it before. Rather you're a trans woman who comes from a supportive home and you have that family, right? When we look at media, there are times where we are under attack, right? Where people say things about us. And it takes a lot. So with that being said, you always have to come back to self and know your truth. Think about who you want to be in the future. If you think about the future, think about the type of woman that you want to be in the present. So I know that this sounds like BS to some of you. I know it might sound cliche and corny, but these are the things when it comes to self-love and self-esteem, you have to handle that privately. And what's so interesting? I see so many handle it privately and express yourself. But what I'm saying is that you have to ask these internal questions and do this work in your transition if you don't have that support system, right? And even if you do have a support system, you still have to do that work. But I understand that it's a fight. It's a fight with self for some of us. For some of us, it's not. For some of us, it's not. But when it comes to gender dysphoria and battling who you are on the inside to become a reality and living in your authenticity, right? And it coming into reality, realizing that you are a real person. It takes time. So think about who you are, and think about the type of woman that you want to be and who you already are. Next one is gender therapy if you can afford it. The next one after that is right. I already talked about that. Seven, try to find community. Try to find positive influences. So many times as trans people, we want community so bad where we surround ourselves with people who are not community. So hear me out. Strike me down when I say this. Just because another person is trans or gay or LGBTQ does not mean that they are in community with you. There are some people who are like you who do not even support you, or who aren't even invested in uplifting you or being in camaraderie with you, right? But what we have to understand is that all of us are people. So outside of this community stuff, outside of being an advocate, everyone is an advocate now. So I'm gonna tie this back to self love and self esteem. All of us, you have some girls who are using the gender as a crutch, which is fine. Use it as a crutch. Do whatever the fuck you want to do. We live in a new age now, right? But what I'm saying is that be careful of the influences that you allow around you, because that can have an effect on your self-love and your own self-esteem. So if you have a friend who's trans or gay and they're struggling as well, or they're spewing out negativity and self-hate, or they're being catty towards you, tearing you down, being catty with you, that's not, to me, that's not community. That's not. But I also understand that in the community, that's a part, especially if you're black or gay, sorry, black or Latinx or brown. We kiki, we throw cattiness, we're clawing, we're doing that, but we have to examine where that cattiness is coming from. For layman's, for lack of better words, I'm gonna say it. I don't like the catty BS. I don't like it. It bothers me. I don't like it. But I also understand that it comes with the territory, right? So if you are really trying to work on appreciating who you are, you have to accept all of you, all of those things that people say are flaws. If someone says that you're too fat or you're too this, that's society telling you that. So I understand that we're all working on that. But you have to be around positive people. You have to. If you're around other trans people who are negative and who are tearing you down and who are being catty and who are clawing all fucking day long trying to be cute. Sorry for my language, YouTube. Oh, wow. I gotta work on the cussing. But it's the truth. Hey, it's the truth. If you are around people who are tearing you down, and you're like, oh my God, we're both trans or we're both gay or, we're gay boys or we're, whatever we are, we're LGBTQ. Not everybody is for you, even within this community. This community is ruthless. It's ruthless. You have people who are shallow in this community. You have people who don't want to hang out with you because you don't fit certain beauty aesthetics, or you don't fit what they look like, especially if you live in New York or Los Angeles or Miami or Atlanta. You have people who think like that, right? Not everyone is like that in the community, not everyone, but there are some people who are like that. Stay away from those people. Be around positive people. That does affect you. Even if you don't think it does, it affects you. Next, you are the driver of your life. So my last points, I wrote this one down. I just want you to know that when it comes to self-esteem and self-love, it comes with speaking positively to yourself, embracing who you are, which is hard, especially if you're fighting trauma and you're fighting internal battles. But you are the driver of your life in the sense, and I know that sounds so damn corny. It sounds like I'm reading a book, but you are in charge. You are. You are. You are in charge. And me, like, I experienced homelessness. I didn't have anyone in high school, and hopefully you're probably looking at my eyes right now, but I'm even going through my mind about the things that I've been through and what I've seen in my life. And there was so many dark moments in my self-love and in my self-esteem where I remember just feeling so worthless and feeling like, how am I gonna live this life? My God, like these are the worst cards. Like, we get killed as Black trans women, we get killed as trans women. People, we're all like, it's just this constant exhausting experience. It's exhausting. the black experience is exhausting. That's all that I can speak to. Now I can give way and say that I can see the struggles of, Latinx and brown. Although I'm not Latinx, I'm not brown. Yeah, I can't speak for them. But what I'm saying is that when you carry those intersections of identity, um, any intersection, it's exhausting. It could be very exhausting, and it can get to you. But you always have to figure out a way to come back to that positive self-talk in the sense of like, you know what, I'm in control of this. I can figure this out somehow. There are people who were before me, and this is what we have to realize. There were people who were trans before you. There were so many beautiful trans women before you who managed to transition, who managed to do it, who managed to figure it out. They pushed through. They had those hard nights. They had attacks. They had their safety violated. Like, I've been through experiences where I was completely destroyed. I had people bullying me in college. I had people calling me the N-word, calling me a tranny, calling me a man. I even went through that a month ago. I was walking down the street by my apartment. This guy made a pass at me, and I didn't want to take his sexual advances. He immediately started calling me a man, tried his best to break me down, but I did not break. He literally followed me up the street, followed me into a store, cussed me out. He kept provoking me. But I didn't break. I didn't break. I stood up for myself. He didn't hurt me. Thank God. Thank God I wasn't hurt. But what I'm saying is that when I got home after that attack, because he started attacking my gender, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, do you know that I'm trans, or are you just saying that because I'm pretty and like you're like, not to sound cocky or nothing like that, but I typically, deeper in my transition, I typically don't deal with that often. It happens sometimes, but not to the extent that he did it. He was very, very violent, like kept getting in my face. So it got to the point where I had to stand up for myself. And, I didn't feel safe to call the police. I do not trust the police. I do not trust law enforcement. That's just me being a black trans woman. I don't. You know what I mean? So for me, thank God I made it out of that situation. But when I came home, oh, baby. Whoo, when I tell y'all, I had to do so much positive self-talk because I was like, you know what? No, you are a woman. Because he was calling me man. He was trying to break me down. And, that's what people do. When they don't get what they want, they try to break you down. But that even happens to black cisgender women, or, for layman's term, black biological women. Black cisgender women, that happens to them, where if you're a black woman, and women in general, women deal with that too, where someone will call them a man just to be fucking evil and messy. You know what I mean? Sorry for my language. Golly, I gotta work on that. Ugh. I don't know how to edit yet, so I'm not cutting it out. But what I'm saying is that it takes the level of, and this video is getting long, I'm gonna wrap it up soon. But I had that experience. I came home and I literally had to pray and calm down. And I called a friend. I called a good friend of mine, and she knows who she is. I love her to death. I called her and I talked about it with her, and I told her how I was triggered, and we worked through those triggers, and thank God she was there for me. But then after we got off the phone, I was still triggered, and it took me like a good 3 hours to calm down. And I calmed down, and I kept affirming myself, and I kept telling myself, you are who you are. You are a woman, regardless of what anyone says, regardless if anyone tries to invalidate it. I don't care what they try to invalidate. I know who the hell I am. Right? It takes a lot of work to do it, and it takes a lot of work. And even if you are deeper in your transition, you still get hit. Don't let it fool you. Don't let it fool you. So if you're new to this, you got to understand that it comes with the territory, and it's not right. It's not right at all. No one should do that to you, right? But there are going to be times where you are alone and your back is up against the wall, and that's where that self-love and self-esteem comes in, and it's so hard because I feel like as trans woman, we try to find that validation through men. We try to find that validation through other things as well. Not all of us, but people stereotype trans women as participating. They have all these statistics about us, of us being sex workers, of us participating in substances and drugs and alcohol. I've been in situations where people judged me for being a black trans woman, and they were like, oh, they self-medicate. People were saying that about me. Back when I was dealing with a very rocky situation in college. You know what I mean? And it was something where it was far from the truth, and the world did not give me the understanding. They did not give me that. Instead, they tried to break me. When I say they, I dealt with some things of some bullying and stuff back in my college days, and it was a terrible situation, right? But I still knew who I was, and I still had a little bit of esteem in me where I was like, you know what? No, I know my truth, and I know who I am, and you know, it's something. I know I'm talking in circles now, right? This is a tangent, but I say all this to say that you are the driver of your life. Don't compare yourself to others. And now we're gonna move on because we're gonna wrap that up. Don't compare yourself to others when it comes to self love and self esteem. Don't compare yourself to other people. And I feel like as trans women, we do that with each other a lot. We're always comparing ourselves to other trans women, and we're always comparing ourselves to cis women. And we have to figure out a way to, you have to figure out a way to see yourself and your own identity. You are not anyone else. It's okay to be inspired by someone. It's okay to be like, yo, for example, me, Janet Mock. I think Janet Mock is phenomenal. Do I agree with everything she does? No. Have I met her several times? Yes. Does she inspire me? Yes. Do I agree with everything that she does? No. Do I respect her? Yes. I will never be her. I don't want to be her. It's okay to have the visibility, right? But you cannot, if you're trying to step into, maybe this is more so for the girls who want to do this advocate thing or be in the public light or whatever, right? For the girls who don't want to do it, take the inspiration as it is. But what I'm saying is that rather a person is a public figure or not, you have your own identity. You get what I'm saying? So it's important for you to know who you are. So for example, there are a few trans women who I admire. I admire Janet Mock. I admire T.S. Madison. I admire Isis King. I respect what they have done in their careers. Rather, and there were things that I may have not always agreed with, but what I can say is that I respect the work, and I respect what it took for them to be visible, right? And that's what it's about. It's about them being visible. So with you now, if you're a regular person like me, a regular person who's a trans woman, I do a few things in the community here and there and stuff like that. I definitely feel that I feel like, if anything, I'm not trying to be like an advocate who's praised just for being an advocate, right? I'm really trying to contribute and just make social change. I think that's my goal. I'm not perfect. I'm not a martyr or anything like that. That's not who I am. I don't want to be that. But what I'm saying is that there are times where you compare yourself. There are times where, you might find yourself comparing yourself to another trans woman, probably because of her looks or how far she is in her transition or her career accomplishments. And if you keep comparing yourself, that is defeating what you need to do, which is build your self-esteem and your self-love. With every area that you operate in your life, you cannot, when you compare yourself to anyone who may look like they're further along than you or may look like they're more successful, don't do it. It will break you every time. You will be so disappointed every time. Those same people who you are looking up to are people. Those same people are not perfect. They're not perfect at all. They are humans. They breathe. They shit. They have horrible qualities. They have positive qualities. They are very human. Right? And that's what I had to realize, because I found myself doing that a lot, where not public figures, but other trans people, right? Just comparing. And I would do that earlier in my transition, like super early. Now I don't do that. I'm like, I know who I am, honey. I'm fine with that. But don't compare yourself to anyone. Your journey is your journey. And it's so funny because I remember earlier, when I was in my teens, older trans women would tell me that. They would be like, don't compare yourself to people. Give it time. They would always tell me that. And I did not understand it back then, because I had to live life, and I was just so eager to transition, and I thought I knew everything, and I did not know everything. I didn't know everything, right? And it wasn't until I went through some experiences, and I'm still living life. It's important to live your life. It's important to have life experience. It's important to have that, right? Now I'm understanding, and I'm like, okay, I know self, and I know myself, and I feel that although my self love is not perfect all the time, it's not perfect. It's never going to probably be perfect because I'm still unlearning and breaking things within self that I grew up with, and unraveling it. Right. What I do know is that I have the ability to see myself, and I have the ability to pull myself out of situations that I feel like are not good for me, which I feel reflects self love and self esteem. I feel like it does because I'm able to be like, you know what, look, this ain't for me. Whether it's a guy or dating, I know all of us are just always talking about a damn man, dating in love or even family stuff, right? Like I've removed myself from family members who are not healthy for me. They're not, right? And I'm probably not healthy for them. Sorry, I'm burping, but um, I share all that to say, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. So this is part two. I know I kind of went on a tangent about it. My last point that I wrote down though, um, passing. This whole passing conversation of being beautiful and pretty privilege, right? Passing is important. It's very important. It's important for people's transition. And in some spaces, pretty privilege and beauty. And I know passing is such a dated term, so please don't strike me down for saying it. I'm saying it for the sake of this conversation. But passing, in the sense of what it takes to look the part. I know that sounds so terrible to say it, but it's there, right? Um, that can aid in someone's safety. It can aid in someone being safer in situations as they navigate life, as they handle life, as they go to the doctor, as they go to school, as they go to work, as they find themselves in these different spaces, right? Um, it's deeper than just looking pretty, right? Self esteem and self love is deeper than just looking pretty in your looks. And for me, that's for all women. Now, for women who don't fit that conventional beauty standard as well, they might, or trans women as well, they might feel like, oh my god, well, what about us? And what I'm saying is that regardless if you have that pretty privilege or not, it's an internal thing. And for me, I feel that your beauty translates once you work on yourself as well. I feel that people can see that. Outside of the surgeries, outside of the top surgery, the bottom surgery, the FFS, facial feminization surgery, or gender affirming surgery, and all these affirming surgeries, right? They are essential, but what good do they do if you truly do not accept yourself and who you are, right? That's what you have to do. If you are, if you're a pretty woman, be pretty, embrace that, right? Embrace that, but just understand that does not always just equate to self-esteem. Um, and it's something that you have to really really work on daily, and you do that through having positive influences, writing, therapy, positive self-talk, surrounding yourself with people who are positive for you, who also affirm you, right? You have the power to curate your life, and you do have the power to curate your life, and if you don't have it yet, it will come to you if you figure out how to get there, and you can do it. You can, if you don't, you don't have to go to school if you don't want to go to school to get a job or all that stuff like that. Like for me, I support sex workers. I think sex workers definitely utilize that as a tool for survival, right? But we also live in an age now where that's not the only option. There are other things that you can also do with that if that's what you do. You see what I'm saying? So it's more than just looks with self love and self esteem. You really have to accept who you are, whether you're trans or not. And I think that that's something that a lot of trans people miss sometimes. In my opinion, that's just what I think sometimes. But I also understand why it's that way. Um, so yeah, it's a hard knock life. Being in the LGBTQ community, it can have its challenges, right? But once once you accept who you are, I do believe there is a sense of peace and happiness that also comes with that. That gives you the ability to deal with those situations as they come. Thank you for watching this video. I know it was a tangent, but this was part 2 of self-love and self-esteem, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm not gonna edit anything. It's all raw footage. I'm not editing it. I'm still growing with editing. I don't know how, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not the best at editing yet, but I will practice. So thank you for watching this, and thank you for enjoying it. And like, share, comments, any thoughts that you have about self-love and self-esteem. If you want a part 3, let me know some topics that you want me to touch on. Let me know. Ask me questions and stuff, or give me, some things you want to chat about. If you disagree with anything I said, disagree with it. Don't be mean in the comments. Don't correct me on what I said. That's annoying. I have some people who correct me sometimes and DM me talking crazy. This is a safe space for me and for my small audience. So with all that being said, check out my podcast. It's called The Perfect Blend Podcast. Follow me on Instagram. That's KAEDAYY. It's your girl Khalif, aka K. Thank you for coming. See you next time.